On today's podcast, we talk Derrick Rose retirement, and I talk about my golf outing with a friend, and we talk about it for a long time. So you can fast forward through that if you want to. We got Gordon Hayward, though. He is somebody who played in the NBA, so we got NBA stories, but he also is a producer, production company, making movies. His movie is out tonight, Notice to Quit, and Bruce Feldman on the college football landscape, a little of the NIL stuff of what he's hearing from UNLV, and why isn't Tennessee maybe the best team in the country? The Alliance, Couch Money Research, and Life Advice. I want to start today talking about Derrick Rose. He announced his retirement yesterday. 16 years in the NBA. Played 15, but obviously missed that 1 year with the injury. So when I saw the 16 years, I thought, oh, that's right. It's been 16 years. I like to think back to the kind of the beginning of Derrick Rose awareness. Knew he was a big-time recruit. Memphis goes on that great run. Beasley was considered the number one pick, consensus number one overall pick going into the draft that year. And then for a good chunk of his season at Kansas State, and then when you watched Rose, you know, we talk about some of these guys that are really good at just being on the ball creators and guys that can just get by anybody. There's some really special ones. And then there's Derrick Rose. Like, it just was crazy. And so you started kind of talking, and like, you don't have to listen to me talk about it, but when I would go to draft camps, different teams that I would talk to, just leading up to the draft, you just felt all of this momentum just shift going, looks like it probably should be Rose. Cause like, at the very least, he is perhaps one of the best on-ball guys getting to where he needs to go that we've ever seen. And I think it played out that way for the early stages of his career. So he wins Rookie of the Year. He goes number one, as we know, to his hometown team. He wins the MVP in his third year. And at the time, the LeBron debate existed. And then you go back and look at the numbers and you're like, what happened here? So let's go over a couple things. I think this 2011 thing will come up, and it'll come up, he's going to make it to the Hall of Fame. The debate at the time were really based on a few things. The value of new. Derrick Rose was new. LeBron was not. It was a great story, right? He's in Chicago. They're the one seed. The one seed thing, that's where the seeding stuff with the MVP, I think it's really, really dicey, where you just go, okay, a couple games here or there. Like, what if he had teammates that were out on this team, and then the rest of his team was healthy, but he may have played, you know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of factors there where if you want to tell me it's a 1 seed versus 7 seed, okay. Like, it even happened this past year where it's like, okay, well, the Thunder are the 1 seed, so Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like, he has to be. It's super competitive West. You're like, look, if you want to just vote for SGA, that's fine. But when the standings are this minimal, I think it can be overvalued. But that was part of it, because you're just going to use it to your side if you're going to argue for Derrick Rose. And I also think LeBron was being judged on the previous 2 LeBron seasons where he'd already won MVP. And there's some statistical dip there a little bit. Had LeBron won that one in 2011, that would have been 5 straight. The voting was overwhelming. Rose won with 113 first-place votes. Howard came in second that year with 3 first-place votes. LeBron had 4 first-place votes. Kobe was the only other player in the league to get a vote. He had 1 first-place vote. So again, 113 for Rose, 8 for everybody else. I'll tell you this, though. If you go back and look at it, whoa. It's like, how did that happen again? Well, remember, voters are generally writers, even way more so back then. I mean, they're probably all writers back then. Writers like stories. The Derrick Rose story was the better story. But yeah, if you go back and do some accounting, you'll think, how did that happen? And how is it so overwhelming? But there's kind of like a little bit of I don't know if it's a lesson, but there's something in there that I do think about, because what's more accurate? The perception of what's happening at the time it's happening, or just scrolling through Basketball Reference and going, well, this guy was good and this guy was better than that guy. And this, because I do think there is some value, right? I do believe there is value in, there's certain players where I'll look at the statistical line. I go, yeah, but what was happening that year was, I don't know if this is a perfect reflection of like what was actually happening that year with that player. I think it happens with quarterbacks a lot too. You'll look at some stats and be like, oh, those stats are actually pretty good. Right? You get Ohio State fans going like, was this Kyle McCord? 5 years from now, they're like, why did Kyle McCord leave? Right? So I do think there's it's not even a think. I believe in it. Why watch any of these games if you're just going to wait a few years and go back and be like, every statistical ranking tells 100% truth and everything that you saw in the moment was completely irrelevant. Some people believe that. I refuse to believe that it's this hard and fast rule, because in 2011, even if you look back statistically, like, how did LeBron not win the MVP that year? Maybe being removed a decade is the wrong way to look at it, and just going through a bunch of stats and realizing like the Derrick Rose thing felt real. Or maybe, again, maybe we're a prisoner of the entire moment. A year later, game 1, first round against Philadelphia, tears his knee up. And that's really kind of it for him. I mean, we can argue about how productive he was. We could look at some of the raw stats, but it was just never the same. And, if you look at the string of negative stuff, and certainly you've got the off the court civil case as well, but with the Bulls, where he is this, he's the son of the city, he's this next thing, like that's kind of haunted by the greatest player ever. And not that anybody's even expected to live up to that standard. He was kind of everything that you would have wanted when he was drafted. And in those first few years, to represent this fan base that's incredible. It just seemed like this perfect story. And then he comes back from the injury, but then he doesn't come back. Remember that? He got cleared and then he didn't want to play. And he said something about like, I still have to worry about the rest of my future. So things start really turning on him. Then he ends up at the Knicks. Remember, there was that story in 2017 where he just left the team for a day, but then he came back. I was reading through that this morning. Like, all of these little things were huge at the time, especially the injury controversy of like whether or not he could have been back out there and playing, if he was scared to come back and play, what he owed the team, what he owed himself. But what I think is really cool for Rose is right now, he is so revered by players. And I was listening to a long interview with him. I don't know how recent it was, but I was listening to him, and you were like, okay, this is somebody that has grown up through all of this and has some really great perspective on the rest of the league and kind of like where he's been. And I remember Simmons and I were arguing about Westbrook a little bit. And it was basically the point of like, who takes the court where you go, okay, well, this person is just different. Like, this is different. And look, I've said many times, I think Westbrook's the best athlete that's ever played in the NBA. But the position, it wasn't like some heated debate with Bill or I, but we were going through like a list of players that we've seen in this last generation of when you went to go see this person play live, like you knew it was a different experience. And he was arguing up Westbrook probably a little bit more than I was, but I get his point. I think it's a lot of why I'll hear players talk about Kyrie. I'm like, these guys love Kyrie. And look, basketball players from the very beginning, what's the goal when you get that ball? You're like, put it in the hoop and score. It's why, when you look at all the ex-podcasters or the ex-players that are now podcasting, majority of these guys all got buckets. So I think that there's a bias towards anybody that was just a bucket getter beyond it. They don't want to hear about efficiency. They don't want to hear about all this other stuff, like who gets buckets. It's why you're never going to see like 4 ex-players sitting around saying, how come Kobe's ranked higher than Duncan? It's just never going to happen with any of the ex-players. And Rose is emphatically in that category of the player who at his peak was everything these guys would hope to be one day as players. And that's why there's that reverence. And that's what I think is like the cool part of you're looking at the totality of Rose's career is, yeah, the rest of it wasn't even close to being the same. He had some nice runs on a bunch of teams. It was kind of fun to have him on your team for a little bit, but it's just also a reminder that it wasn't even close to what it was, because when he was at his peak, forget it. He was going by you and he was beating everybody else to the rim in a way that, like Iverson, he was doing things you just didn't think would be possible to dominate a basketball game at that size. I don't know where he's going to stack up historically. He just doesn't have enough of those peak years. It's like a great band that just doesn't have the catalog. But at least, I guess for him, he had the catalog and he had that season, even without the playoff success. But I do think it kind of comes full circle for the way other players look at him going, he played the game the way I used to hope I could play when I was in the driveway. Quick pivot here. You're home for golf, the Ryen Russillo podcast. We're going to jump in with Ceruti here as well. Ceruti, former amateur golfer. Best score ever.
Is it everybody a current amateur golfer?
Yeah, but you played high school golf. Did you ever think about playing at Quinnipiac? Would you have been good enough?
I think I probably could have walked.
Yeah.
I was one of those weird people who was better when I was younger than I am now. Like I just play. I mean, I played golf like every day when I was a kid, and then I kind of went through this weird lull of like
having a job and a family.
Working. The 9 to 5 thing certainly hurt. Once I was stopped working overnights at ESPN, I was like, wait, I can't just go golfing in the middle of the day. This sucks. But I'm kind of back on the saddle again. Although it's just like, I don't know, it's just frustrating. I played over the weekend, and I just thought the course was incredibly unfair, and I had a terrible day. I was like mad the entire time because I'm like, the greens aren't fair. Is anybody even having fun? I'm not having fun. Is anybody else having fun? Which I think is, like a lot of golfers. But I'm surprised that because you used to always be like anti-golf guy. You used to get so mad about it with Van Pelt when he would ask people like, how's your game going in an interview? And you'd be like, that's the worst question. I hate it. And now you're back all in on the stick. So I love it.
Yeah. I didn't hate golf guy. I hated that we had in a 7 to 8 minute window for a radio interview that we would waste a bullet on how you hitting them.
Yep.
So I hated it because I was a radio host, not because I despised the game. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to peak efficiency out of the interview. I get that. I get it.
Yeah.
No wasted breaths.
And then it was funny because it just became open season where Scott knew I hated it. And every now and then he'd be like, hey, long and straight, buddy.
Keeping him straight.
Yeah. And then he would kind of look at me. And then it just became funny because he was doing it just to fuck with me. And so I didn't have, golf career, pretty limited, didn't play it. We didn't have that kind of Southington, Connecticut Ceruti money growing up.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's right.
Didn't play any golf. And then
big country club guy, your boy over here.
Staples North. So I didn't play. And then, all like the hockey Vermont guys would come back and they played all the time. And I had a really friendly golf schedule, bartending. So I was like, let me pick this up. But I didn't really have the temperament for it. I didn't necessarily play all that well. And then the year I joined a club, I think it was like $600 to join. I broke my hand trying to dunk. So that was it. And then I didn't have any money for a really long time. And then when I was at ESPN, it was basically the way the show worked. I was 9 to 5, and I still would much rather play basketball or lift. So there wasn't really ever any window. And when you're in New England and you have the 9 to 5 going anyway, your golf season is pretty short, even though there's a really nice course right next to where I live. I think I hit balls there a couple times just to see like what it would feel like. But yeah, in the last year plus, I've decided like you're going to have to figure this out as you get older. You can't suck at it because you're going to hate that. So anyway, I've been playing regularly, like once a week. Regularly, I shouldn't even say that. I've been trying to cram in a round a week the last 4 or 5 weeks in preparation for Pinehurst, where I'm playing there coming up here soon. We're going to like 16 dudes. So we haven't done this in a long time. And then guys are like, you better.
Are they good? Or a lot of them good? Or is it like casual guys?
Yeah. Guys started sending their handicaps around to try to figure out the pairings for this stuff. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, once you guys are good, like there's always a couple guys in your friend group that have just been scratch golfers, like since they were teenagers. They just grew up with it. Again, shout out to Staples. But some of these other guys that I expected to not be that good, they're handed in 11 and 13 handicaps. I was like, what is this? So I haven't had a lot of great. The first couple rounds out, I actually shot well, which didn't make any sense. And now I'm hitting the ball so much better, and the scores are just getting worse and worse and worse. So I had a 103, a 98, a 96, and then our big guy, Chad Wesley Smith, who joined us, trainer to the stars, who came on, like all-time powerlifting guy. He's a member at Mesa Verde, and he had invited me down before. So I went down there. That's in Costa Mesa, near Newport, not Newport, Vermont, for those wondering. And so I played around with him yesterday, 43 on the front, 52 on the back.
Yeah.
You know, so
well, it does seem like all the scores you named, though, you're trending in the right direction. You know, scores going down. So that's good.
Yeah, the par 3 course near me, it's a 10-hole par 30. I shot a 33 there. That's a new record for me. So
yeah, just don't.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Just keep the par 3 part to yourself.
Yeah, I don't think they let you put that in the old handicap deal there. Just a little background on Chad, though, just so you understand. I was looking up because a clubhouse attendant came up to him as we were getting our bags and leaving for the day. He was like, dude, I think he called him Mr. Smith too. He's like, I saw your 900-pound squat. So there's a video of him squatting 900 pounds on YouTube. He also did 12 reps of 635. He did 22 reps of 500. He's just a beast of a guy. We were tied after the front 9, and then I absolutely fell apart on the 18th, which sucks because I have this habit of having awful 18ths, and then I have a bad taste in my mouth the rest of the ride home. But it was good.
You're not always closing.
Yeah, I'm not. And I think that might have been club selection and away game thing. So I'd like to, maybe we could spend 20 minutes going shot by shot if you'd like to do that. So, the floor's yours.
Put that on your Instagram. Yeah, just put all your golf shots up. That's what people do now. I will say, this isn't meant to be a diss or disrespectful at all, but remember like back in the day when Tiger, it was like, is he too, Rory, I think we did this too, is like, is he too jacked to play golf? You guys are really pushing that line. Like, I mean, Chad's a big dude. Like physically, is he, like, how does that, I just want to see him swing. Like his arms are like too big.
He's good. He's steady. I think he played below his standards. Maybe I brought him down yesterday and it was great. They were just like, you guys can go off as a 2, and we just flew through. It was terrific. But the real part of the story, and if people fast forward this, I will not be surprised, but I had played there one other time. Okay. And so Chad was like, all right, we're playing with Joe Staley, played tackle for the Niners, and great guy. I mean, you want to talk about a couple ridiculous large human shots. You're like, what did you just hit? He was like, oh, it's 5-iron. Like, okay.
I was saying, what are they driving off the tee? Are they like, everybody's 300 plus now, it feels like.
With Staley, it wasn't even about the bombs off the tee. He hit a 5-iron like 30 yards over the green because I think he hit it 250 plus or something stupid because he just hit it flush and he was good. But the other guy in the group was this guy, Ryan Knapp, who's Jake Knapp's brother. Jake Knapp, who's on the PGA Tour, who's like everybody's favorite golfer now amongst my friends. Number 2 still behind Homa. Let's not get carried away. Maybe Finau's 2 or 3.
True.
But Knapp was like really good, right? The brother, I think the guy I played with had the course record. And so I had just come fresh off of a visit, a club champion in Vegas, because I was in Vegas constantly for work. And I had some downtime. So I looked at Ferraris. We covered that. And then I went to get fitted. I was like, I need better because Matt Bushman played with me, and he goes, you have way too light of shafts. You can't have shafts like this, dude. Not for you. What are you, high volume day? He's like, you need heavier shafts. So I was like, perfect. What a great opportunity to spend money on golf. I'll go get fitted. I'll make the appointment, and I'm going to get these shafts. And so we go out, we start testing it out. He's like, what kind of irons do you have? I tell him, because it's probably a little advanced for you. And I was like, but it keeps me pure. And I'm just going to, work my way up to playing into the blades that I have. I'm just kidding. I don't have blades, but they're close. So we start testing out shafts, and it's, at the beginning was a disaster. He's like, are you hungover? I was like, no, I didn't go out last night. He could start. Right. It was so bad the first few minutes for whatever reason, like I just didn't have it locked in. And I'm like sitting there. You ever hit a ball where you like, who the fuck was that? Who just hit that? That was me. Like, can I not actually do this? He goes, we may have to shut this down. Like after a couple hits, he's like, we may just have to just call it. And then he's like, are you hungover or something? I was like, no, I didn't do anything last night. He's like, oh, he's like, that's even worse then. So finally I got warmed up. And by the way, am I making this long? Yes, I am. For all of you that tell everybody, every one of your scores and stroke by stroke and every fucking swing and what should have happened and if the trap lip wasn't there. So you now have to suffer too. The guy was like, you're a pretty powerful guy. Thank you. He's like, you need to swing harder. I was like, do I? I hear I don't I should swing less hard all the time. He's like, no. He's like, why would you not use this power that you have? He's like, let's try this shaft. And of course, it was the most expensive shaft there, like really expensive. And I'm swinging so hard. And then he'd go back to the other shaft. Then we'd go back to the expensive one. We try a different one the whole time. And he's like, look, you're going to miss because you're not great. But he goes, but look at your distance and look at your miss range with this shaft. Like the numbers tell you you're better with this shaft. I was like, dude, I got to tell you, I don't think I'm going to play golf this way, though. Like swinging this hard.
Yeah. Out of your shoes.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to work. And he's like, yeah, but if you don't do this or all these different, and by the way, they were great at Club Champions. So this is not anything other than me just telling you where I was. And so I ended up grabbing those. And then this first round that I played at Mesa Verde, it was the first day with the new shafts. And I was like, this is going to be awesome. And then Knapp, of course, who's like a scratch golfer and has the course record, was like, those are pretty nice shafts. And I don't even screw around. I go, I just buy shit, dude. I was like, putter, what's the most expensive one? He's like, this one's awesome. I was like, done. I'm just admitting it. I'm a total mark. Don't care when it comes to that stuff. Be like, wait, that I can change the loft on the club. I'll get that one then too. So loser move, admitting it. I go out and play so bad that I haven't even played with those clubs since. So then at the turn, I see Knapp and he's like, kind of like thumbs up, thumbs down. Because apparently like, even Homa was like, how bad is Russillo? He's like, he was awful. And then he's like, I go 43. And he's like, thumbs up. And then of course it fell apart on the back. I would have played another 18 yesterday, except I had to come back.
One of those days.
Yeah. We got done and I was like, I could play another 18. I'm hitting the ball well enough. I'm pissed about a couple things. Now I've played the course. I know what not to hit on 18. I'm ready to go, but I had to rush back to watch the Giants and Cowboys hold each other for 4 fucking hours last night.
And that's why this is the Open today.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, I had a little, if Daniel Jones had pulled it out and be like, would Daniel Jones, like, oh, you need another quarterback segment? Awesome. So we gave you a little golf.
Yeah.
Gave you a little golf instead.
I agree though. That's good. Great golf stories. But I also agree with you. Like we need to start a petition to like, not every football game is worth talking about. And that one was not.
I love it. I love when I start to see people that are pushing back a little bit. Like Van had one last night, was like, football should be Sunday, Monday. And when they had the Friday game, I was like, hey, and by the way, the NFL, I've been saying this for years, they're going to find a way to have this 7 nights a week. They're going to find a way. And then everybody's going to send their football memes, football. I need a break from football. I don't want NBA 7 nights a week. All right. I am with you. Some people have been brainwashed to think the worst 4 hours of NFL football is good. And it's like, I don't care what the rating is. That wasn't fun. That sucked last night. And I didn't have an Open. So I made you suffer through my golf stories.
We're all better for it. Don't worry about it.
I can't believe it took this long. The star of Fox's college football coverage and one of the best college football writers in the country for The Athletic, it's Bruce Feldman. Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Okay, let's talk some ball.
Okay.
You're always good on the NIL stuff too. And I know The Athletic just in general it's been really good on it. You know, all the twists and turns, just a lot of really good resources there. So we had this UNLV story with the quarterback saying he's leaving because of just money he was promised that he never got. I think there's other versions of the story where I think the program was like, we really like our backup. So, you know, what if you're making demands on us now and you frame it as, I don't, you know, again, I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure they really like their backup and maybe they're okay with this. Maybe it's a rallying cry for the rest of the way. But what do you think? What's your best guess at what happened here with Sluka?
You know, Ryan, I think like a lot of cases in NIL, it's really murky, you know, because in most cases, players commit somewhere, there's no signed contract for them. So it's, UNLV, so some of the NIL agents I've talked to have said, this is UNLV. If you know how things work in this conference, this isn't Oregon. This isn't Ole Miss. This isn't a school with deep pockets that's throwing around a lot of money. They have a really good receiver right now in Ricky White, who came back. I don't think Ricky White's getting this kind of money that was speculated that the transfer quarterback, Matthew Sluka, who had been a good quarterback at Holy Cross, was getting. Again, you're not going to the SEC, you're not going to the Big Ten. You're going to a Mountain West program that, by the way, until Barry Odom got there, was horrible for 40 years, right? And also worth noting, last year, their starting quarterback going into the year was one of the better players in the conference. He gets hurt early on. Jaden Mayava, freshman quarterback, gets thrown in, plays terrific. Jaden Mayava ends up leaving for NIL money to go to USC this year. He's not the starter. So if you think about it, if UNLV was really thinking about throwing a bunch of money around, they would have thrown it at their quarterback, who was just a freshman of the freshman player of the year in the Mountain West, who still has eligibility and knows the system in and out, then go after somebody from the other side of the country and have him come in, especially because, like you said, I agree. I know people inside that program, talking to them back in training camp, they like the other transfer they brought in from another small school, Campbell, Hajj Malik Williams. They think he probably throws it better than Matthew Sluka. He's faster. Now, he may not be quite as tough. And I think that was probably a little bit of the difference in their decision and who became the starter. But they're 3-0, and I would not at all be surprised if they keep rolling along with the backup.
Is there any movement to have more clarity with the NIL? Because I remember, like, when it was first kind of announced and you were writing that basically all these programs are going, now it's just on. And it's kind of, now look, some programs basically just changed the business model of what is happening with compensation. I think that's fair to say. But the NCAA then, I don't know what, after a year after this free-for-all, was like, by the way, there's still rules. And then it was like, well, what are they? And then nothing really happens. I wonder if there's another version of this that seems a little bit more clear, or if this is just kind of what it is.
Yeah, I think because it's in this gray area, you've had a court case that's going on that came out of Tennessee that people thought, okay, now the contracts are going to be up front, but they really aren't. Most places aren't doing that. Even the places that are really good at NIL, and when I say really good, I mean they have deep pockets, they're not having kids have signed contracts till they show up. So there's that piece of it. Then there's another piece. You mentioned some of the work the Athletics done on NIL. We had a really good series that we did in the spring. And I remember talking to some players who had been through the draft process, and one of them had been multiple time transfer. He ended up at 3 different schools, and he had a lot of knowledge on how different things work and everything else. And he pointed out something that I hadn't really thought of and I hadn't seen out there at the time, which was a player may think they're getting $1 million deal, but in a lot of cases, they're not. What they're getting is they may be living in a really fancy house that's a $300,000 house, but they don't own it. They just have access to it for 4 months. They may think they're getting a $100,000 car, but they don't own it. They're just getting it for 4 months. And so it's like what they think the value is compared to the monetary, weight of what they're getting is very different. And so I think all this stuff is all over the map as it comes to what people are getting, whether people are following through on their payments of what they think they're getting. And also a lot of the people involved, agents typically have the reputation of being fairly unscrupulous in the pros. Now you're getting them that are, and a lot of times, way less credible because it's a newer group of people who have jumped into this void, whether they're high school coaches or parents trying to do this or whatnot. It's just such a murky setup right now. And I think it's going to be that way for a while. And you'll hear more of these stories come to light.
Let's talk some ball here. I know you've seen a bunch of teams already on the road. Look, there's still plenty of teams that I'm sure you'd like to see. Miami plays tonight. And it just felt like, hey, at some point, everything has to work out. And if there were a year where it would work out with the talent, with the recruiting, it would be when they would add somebody like Cam Ward. Because when they start throwing up, I think Palmer was doing the game, and it was, when's the last time a quarterback from Miami was drafted in the first 3 rounds of the draft? Like it went all the way back to 1990. I mean, it was nuts.
Yes, even before Dorsey was a great college quarterback, but he wasn't a first round kind of guy,
he was
or even a second round.
Wasn't he a 7th rounder?
Or he was late.
Yeah.
I mean, look, even Gino won a Heisman. Gino wasn't like, Gino Toretto was kind of like the Danny Werfel of Miami.
Yeah. So let's just talk Miami. What's possible?
I think they are going to make the playoff, and I think they're going to make a lot of noise in the playoff because the guy you mentioned, Cam Ward, is a tremendous talent. He can extend plays. He has a really strong arm. He is also, everybody I've talked to inside that program raves about his leadership and presence. That's something that had really been lacking, in terms of in that position. They felt like they were fairly rudderless. And Cam Ward has a spark, and that's been big. The other thing that, Mario Cristobal's always had a reputation of being a really good recruiter. If you look at what he left behind at Oregon and the guys who developed, he was really good on the O-line. That was an area that Miami had been really underwhelming in for a long time. He upgraded that. But then you saw what they have done, not just Cam Ward, and they spent a bunch of money for Cam Ward, but in the portal, I would argue now, nobody, not even Oregon, has been better in the portal this year than what Miami added. You have Cam Ward. You have the big running back, Damian Martinez. You add Sam Brown, who is one of Dana Holgerson's receivers at Houston. You add in the D-line that they brought. I mean, they got a guy from Tennessee's terrific. They have a D lineman who looks like he is playing like a first-round talent. It's just all across the board what they've done. And then some of Cristobal's recruits, you see a running back, Jordan Lyle, who is a freshman, went off last week. People I talked to inside the program there think he's the most talented Miami running back they've recruited in probably over a decade. So you add this mix of what they have. It's not to say they can't stub their toe. We've seen this from almost every team that hasn't been established yet. It's still a ways before Miami can say, "Oh, the U is back." I will say this: this is by far the most talented team Miami has had in 20 years. Now, how far that takes them, we'll see. I mean, they're still punching up, I would say, against Georgia and Ohio State, but and maybe Texas, but almost anybody else, I think Miami can go toe to toe with them now. They weren't like that, even when they had the, Manny Diaz's year with the turnover chain where they whipped Notre Dame, but they were just, I don't want to say it was smoke and mirrors. They weren't like this on offense. They didn't have the caliber of talent they've had that they've been able to acquire through NIL. It's to me, they are the team to beat in the ACC. I'm not sure that's saying that much given what Florida State looks like, but I think they're a dangerous team.
Have you come back around to like Clemson? And Clemson can still make the playoff, but it's. I know the NC State score is absurd. It's also CJ Bailey in for Grayson, who it was like this undisclosed injury that probably at the time was something to do with his head. But
right.
I'm like in this weird spot of like, I got the Clemson content where it's like, okay, it's done. So, well, based on the standard that they had, it's been done now for a little while, but like done to the point where you don't think you have to be like ready to play them on a Saturday? Because I think that's a huge mistake. You'd like Miami that much more than Clemson is, I think, what I'm hearing from you.
I do. Now, Cade Klubnik has ability, and they have good players. They have good athletes on defense. They really still do. They have a physical running back who they can kind of lean on. One of the issues for them when they've dropped off quite a bit, they were so great at receiver. Yeah. And then they missed on recruits. And obviously because Dabo doesn't mess with the portal, that he can't like replenish an area that you miss on. And that was the case. Now they do have some good young receivers. And like I said, Klubnik's look good. I think what's been interesting is Garrett Riley, who, as everybody knows, is Lincoln Riley's younger brother. He was really good at TCU the year they went to the national title game. And then there was a big hire for Dabo and really struggled last year. Obviously, they didn't look good in the opener against Georgia. But since then, they've looked better. I mean, they're probably the second best team in the ACC. They still have a bunch of athletes on defense. And like I said, Klubnik has ability. I don't feel like they're quite as good as Miami. I mean, Miami played them last year, and after getting smashed by them the year before, Clemson, I think it was like, okay, we can play with these guys. And it wasn't like this is a much better Miami team than the one that Clemson had their hands full with last year.
I'm picking Bama just because I couldn't get a Bama game right, whether I picked for him or against him last year. And I think going into it with my thoughts on like the Milroe limitations, it was pretty simple, like a Milroe Carson Beck rematch of last year where Georgia's probably feeling like, how did we not win a national championship last year? Like, how did we let that happen to us in the SEC title game? I know the Georgia record head to head against Bama. I know the history with this. So everything was telling me I'm fading myself on this one by picking Alabama. Where are you?
Man, like my heart wants to say Alabama for a lot of reasons. I saw them in person; they look really good. I think Milroe is even more dangerous with Kalen DeBoer in that system. Love Ryan Williams; he's the 17-year-old phenom receiver who runs like the wind and is a good route runner and the most talented receiver they've had there since Devontae Smith was there. And the thing that gives me a little pause here, because I think we all watched Georgia play at Kentucky, and they really struggled. Kentucky kind of ran it down their throats. Georgia was fairly limited. There's definitely a little bit of concern about is there a big difference for them home versus away? They're a little banged up on the D line. The part where I'm like, I get a little bit gun shy of going against Georgia here is this. Last year, Georgia was number one going into this game in the SEC title game. And nobody thought this was a great Alabama team last year. And Alabama's O-line, which had been much maligned, really kind of took it to Georgia and dominated the trenches. And that was a great performance by Alabama's O-line, and Georgia, got punched in the stomach. And then coming out of that, you heard a lot of people at Georgia taking note of some of the comments that Alabama made of that. On top of that, you also have Kirby Smart has to be looking at this team. They did not look good the last time out against Kentucky. Now that was a road game, and Kentucky has some good people, good big people, and they're physical. But I think Kirby Smart's looking at it going, hey, Nick Saban's not there anymore. We're not losing to this guy. We cannot lose to this guy. And for those reasons, I think you get Georgia's best game. I'm not saying Georgia's going to run the table this year because they got a bunch of other tough games coming up. But this one, I think they respond to being really challenged, and I think they beat Alabama.
Yeah, this is where the conference play, and this isn't even specific to the SEC. This is just when you've been around each other a bunch of times. Like you look at the Kentucky-South Carolina game, it's one of the worst games you'll see from a passing offense all season long at any level. And then Kentucky's at home against Georgia. It was supposed to be game day too, right? And they ended up going with LSU, South Carolina. And you go, I was joking about, like, I can't imagine what those offensive coaches meetings were like all week in Lexington. And then I left the Georgia game going, well, they must have been amazing meetings. Like this is a prideful group. This is a group that responded. It's terrible. There was one 3-man rush by South Carolina against 7-man protection, and they still got to the quarterback. I mean, it was like all-time terrible film. And yet they got up for this Georgia game. So then you go, okay, well, now is there something wrong with Georgia? Maybe there was nothing wrong with Georgia. Maybe Kentucky had pride and found a way at home. Then it wasn't like you weren't going to be focused on the opponent. I don't know that I'd agree that they ran it, move the ball a ton. I know the total yardage is rushing, but sometimes when you have a team with Georgia, our expectations are through the roof. I mean, they still held Kentucky to 12 points. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, what was the real issue? I still think the receiver part of this, like if there's one part that you're going to try to attack with Bama, because I still love all these interchangeable pieces that I see up in the front. Is Carson Beck just going to find a way to win this game with a receiver group that I think nationally most people would have to check a depth chart again, just because, there's just not the names.
Right. They added a transfer from Vandy, who's a good young receiver, is big and athletic. You added Colby Young from Miami, who's a big receiver. The run game, I think, is in an interesting place because you had ATN, who obviously missed the beginning of the year. He's a transfer. It hasn't felt like, again, and they lost a really good offensive lineman in the offensive line. One of their guards, she's probably going to be out for probably 3 weeks or so. I don't know. I still think Beck is a terrific quarterback. I just think they find a way to win this game. But right now, like, I think some people looked at it and go, okay, it's a road game in the SEC against a team. Mark Stoops is a good coach. They're going to be physical. And I felt like it was almost like Georgia felt like they were playing to Kentucky's level, whereas I think they're going to play to a different level this weekend in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, makes sense. Could see it going either way. I'm not going to be shocked by any of it. You saw Michigan in person. They made the switch to Orgy, which I think was the first alarming thing, because out of camp, you go, hey, wait, he didn't win the job, and it's Davis Warren, and then he gets shut down. And now I think after the USC game, I go, okay, well, now I understand why. Them pulling out that game, and the two stories of it, the dominant defense, the adjustment by SC. I really like Moss, a quarterback for SC. I think SC is a good football team. I can't believe they lost the game. And then as they were losing it, I can't believe when they were winning, they ended up losing it. Mullings has the biggest play in the second half because Michigan couldn't do anything with the football. And then when we talk about Michigan, we talk about them to the standard of what they've been the last couple of years. When you look at them in comparison with Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, and the Big Ten, where are they?
I think they're going to get drilled in Columbus at Thanksgiving. I think there's going to be a massive amount of to me, that's a bad matchup for them right now. I expect Michigan will get better over the course of the year because they lost almost everybody on offense, right? They lost the entire offensive line. They lost a first-round quarterback who was much more talented than the guys who are trying to replace him, right? You lost Blake Corum, who's a really good running back. Loveland is still there. He's a big time tight end, but he's been banged up.
Right, he didn't play in the SC game. Right.
Yeah, so they're super limited on that side of the ball. The margin for error is really small. Kalel Mullings has put the program on his back, right? He was the guy who, until they played at Ohio State 2 years ago, he was a linebacker. And then they switched him and as a short yardage back, and he gave him something, and he kept getting better and better. And now he's, to me, way more important to them than the guy who was on the cover of the video game, Donovan Edwards. I know Donovan went off against, in Columbus a couple of years ago, but Mullings won that game. I mean, they're going to try to be physical, and they're not taking a ton of chances. And when he just basically, bucked and threw the USC tackler off his back and kept going, because I was thinking, how are they going to move the ball downfield here? Well, that's how. He's going to be tougher than anybody USC had. And I'm with you. I really like Miller Moss. His offensive line is not good. He had people in his face. He made plays, and the defense is much improved. If I was a USC fan, I'd be very encouraged by the direction of the program. Now, they have to upgrade in a big way on the D line and on the O line. But Danton Lynn's been a great hire. We know Lincoln's really good with offense and with quarterbacks, and I think that showed up. But again, when we had Michigan against Texas, the part that was kind of like, whoa, this looks bad, is they had back-to-back NFL defensive coordinators who did a terrific job. Harbaugh gets Mike McDonald, who's now the Seahawks head coach. He gets Jesse Minter, who's now, back out here. He's the Chargers defensive coordinator. Those guys did terrific. Wink Martindale comes in, and it just looked like he didn't realize, oh yeah, I got D linemen that are better than most of the people they're going to be up against. And so some of the stuff they did, it just seemed like they were kind of looked unsound and a little lost. And to credit to Texas, Quinn Ewers lit them up. He bought time. He did, and Sark just took him to school. This time, I felt like it was a much better matchup for them defensively because you had an offensive line that's nowhere near as good as Texas is. And, it just felt like they were in their comfort zone. They also didn't need to win a shootout like they probably were going to have to do against Texas. So I think Michigan's an 8-4 team. I think they can hang with Penn State. I like Penn State's offense under Andy Kotelnicki, but I need to see more. Because we saw last year Drew Aller looked really good against everybody else and really bad in the games that were the white knuckle games. Where you're going to be gripping the steering wheel, and those were Ohio State and Michigan. I think he'll be better now, but we'll see. Oregon's got to get way better on the O-line. I mean, I was a believer in them coming into the year. So far, their offensive line, with the exception of the left tackle, has looked very suspect. And how that fits with Dylan Gabriel, I still think they're a playoff team, but coming into the year, I thought they were a dangerous national title contender. Not with the way the O-line is looking. They got to get way better if they're going to hang with Ohio State, and then try to make some noise in the playoff.
Yeah, I feel better about Oregon's O-line after the Boise game, but you're right. I mean, the start of the season, because I picked him as a national champ. I was trying to go. I just didn't want to pick Ohio State, Georgia, or Texas. I don't know. I was trying to do something a little different. Sometimes I just do that. I was like, why would there be such a drop off with Gabriel and the O-line the first couple of weeks is alarming. So there's a little bit of a positive there. I think the positive with Michigan is I completely agree with you, because going into that matchup, it wasn't even just that, hey, how could Orji have been if he didn't win the job when everybody thought he was going to win it? And have you noticed some of this defensive stuff that's happening here with Michigan? Now, maybe it's because, again, this really small sample size and they get dump trucked by the number one team in the country when Texas comes in Ann Arbor. But whatever they had figured out from that point until the first half of the USC game, like that defense was stifling. And it's also, I think, another positive too, where the first half of that game, I'm going, this could get kind of weird for Lincoln Riley this week. You're like, you brought in this offensive genius, we can't do anything on the road against Michigan. And I think the halftime change at tackle and some of the schemes and having everybody on the same page was like just a nice little reminder of why Lincoln is considered who he is, that they did figure that game out for the second half. And I think you're right about the defense too. I think USC made some incredible open field tackles in that game that I remember going like, oh, that's surprising, because after last year, they may have made more open field tackles in the game against Michigan than all of last season. So I still think USC is a good team. I would agree. I don't, unless there's some kind of downfield passing threat from Orji that happens quickly here. And maybe it will, because we just haven't seen him be asked to do any of it. I don't know how you would pick him against Ohio State at this point. A lot would have to improve.
Yeah, I don't see it. And Ryan, if we haven't seen any semblance of that yet, I don't think we're going to see it this year. I mean, like that is disturbing. The fact that you haven't. Now, to his credit, there was one run where he made where he was like one of my freaks list guys, where I was like, oh yeah, that's why he's like he scooted up the sideline. He's a 235-pound guy, and there he looked really dynamic. They need to see more of that to take. If you can do something extra in the run game, at least okay. Then they're a problem. But if they're just really limited to what they get from the running backs, man, I don't think they can get near the playoff, much less do any damage in it.
Let's talk a little Big 12 before we kind of open it up to everything else. This conference is as advertised, where we knew that it was deep. I mean, there have been some years in the past where I've looked at Big 12 and be like, you see how deep that conference is and how competitive it is? But the BYU dismantling of K-State, throw that in the mix. The Cam Rising storyline out of Utah, and they've still found a way to be 4-0. They're still 10th, where I think it's like a benefit of the doubt part of that. Iowa State, who's always kind of overlooked, is ranked and still undefeated. And then you have Oklahoma State that loses to the backup in Utah. So everybody's still alive in this one, but do you have one of those teams that, I think the answer always feels like with Rising and now Keithy back, that's the default answer for a lot of us, even after the first month. But it's just such a tough thing with Rising, even though it feels like this injury wasn't even supposed to be that big of a deal.
I know. It's, I've said this to some of my, colleagues at Fox. I was like, we all hear these reports. He's, Rising's expected to play. I'm like, I'll believe he's going to play when he takes the first snap. Because like last year, you had all the, the speculation, everything. We had it last week again. I mean, he's a really good quarterback, and especially he's a really good fit in that system. I'm sure he'll be back at some point this year, but it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, what's going on, and how is Kyle managing it and everything? We know they're really good on defense. We know they'll be able to run the football. They're the most physical team in that league. And he's a terrific coach. I mean, they are, like you said, I think they're the default team. The most surprising thing for me in the Big 12 so far has been BYU. I've actually watched them a bunch just by, when I've been around for games, and watched all the K-State game last week. So Kalani Sitake, former Kyle Whittingham protege, super tough guy. He has a big presence to him. Like, guys play hard for him. Their defense is really good. I mean, you watched it when they played SMU. It's not like they don't have any athletes. And SMU could do nothing in the red zone. They just kept shutting them down. In K-State, here they are with one of the fastest backfields in the country. They got Avery Johnson who can run like the wind, and he's really good. Not a great passer yet, but still really dangerous.
It's gotten better though
Giddens
with him, because I kind of felt like it was almost too hyped because it was the hair and he's the speed and all that kind of stuff. And I just always will default to like, I've got to see him convert some third and longs, man, before I'm picking you guys to be in a playoff or something like that. And I maybe I'm wrong on this, but from what I've seen, I feel like it's gotten a little better. Maybe my expectations were too low.
And he's young.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the MVP of the bowl game. He was a true freshman last year. You
Big
got
time
Dylan
recruit.
Edwards, who's a good change of pace. Yeah. So you add those guys, and yet, BYU stepped up. And remember, like, that wasn't just a blowout that they took over in late in the second quarter. BYU is like down to their third string running back. Like, LJ Martin's a good running back. He wasn't playing. They have a wild card quarterback. Jake Retzlaff is a JC transfer from here in Southern California who can do, has some arm talent.
Yeah, he's
and
wild,
can make some
man.
spectacular plays. Yeah, but he's also like, he turns it over. Like, I forgot who they played week 2, but their fan base was like, was dry heaving at that point, because you're watching the turnovers happen. And if he can take care of the ball, I'm not saying that the Holy War game between BYU and Utah in early November is going to decide, play a big role in the Big 12, but BYU was picked 13th in the conference preseason. And right now, I mean, for the first month of the season, they've been the story of the Big 12 because the offense has been better despite all the running back injuries, and the defense is really good. I would have thought K-State would have been that team. And granted, I wouldn't give up on them now just after one loss, because I don't think it's going to be like a 12-1 team coming out of the Big 12. Utah or not, Iowa State or not, BYU or not. I think you will have, my guess is you'll have somebody that's 10-3 coming out of the Big 12. There's just too much parity, and I don't think anybody's that much better than anybody else.
Yeah, that was the SMU game. I mean, they were 12-point dogs in that one. They win a tight 18-15 game, but that was the moment.
They had like 5 trips in the red zone and got no touchdowns. It's crazy.
That was one of those games where you think, look, that's kind of the Big 12. I mean, Cincinnati could be 4-0 if it's not the Pitt game. Colorado and that one point in that Baylor game, I'm going,
UCF is dangerous. Right. They can run the heck out of the ball.
How about us giving some ACC Big 12 love? All right, let's close with a couple different things here. Well, I'd say maybe all kind of the same conversation. I'm guilty of it. I have a hard time with it. It's the most unknown of any of the sports that we all love because the turnover, and even more turnover now. So you kind of default to like, who's got a quarterback that I remember from last year that was really good, so we'll just rank them wherever. And then you just get so married to that number to the left of the name of the team. And so I look at somebody like Tennessee, where I don't care about the NC State score against Clemson. I'm going to keep saying it all season long because people will point to the NC State win not meaning anything. Maybe they end up being terrible, but Grayson played in that game and they destroyed them. I don't care about the final score against Oklahoma because they were clearly better than Oklahoma. They have a defense that's better than 2 years ago. When you're looking at Tennessee and you're looking at that Bama win, it was so exciting. It was great for Knoxville. Like, I love it. It's also 52-49, and you're wondering, are they going to have enough defense here to really be considered like one of those teams? So when I say this, and there's some other teams, you go anywhere you want with this. 2 weeks ago, it's like, oh, it's Georgia, it's Texas, and it's Ohio State. And those are the clear teams. And then it's everybody else. And I feel the urge to want to push back without necessarily having an answer, where you could just say, why couldn't Tennessee right now actually be better than everybody else in the country? Ole Miss schedule wise, I can't do it, but yet I'm giving Ohio State the benefit of the doubt with the same weak opponent strength of schedule. So sometimes it feels completely unfair with how long the list will go of like what real contenders are. I guess I'm asking for somebody like you that's really plugged into it. Do you have feelings about teams rankings wise where you're like, I think that's just totally wrong? Like, Tennessee actually today could be the best team in the country.
They could be, because their defense is so much better. Like, I would say you may have to go back to the
Al Wilson,
John Henderson days of that era to find a defense that looked this good, right? Tim Banks has got them playing really well. Pierce was the guy, as an edge rusher. I want to say he came in at like 208 pounds, and now he's maybe up to 240 something. Can run like, can run like Chop Robinson or Dallas Turner. But he hasn't been, I'm not saying he's not getting attention. It's all the other guys who are coming at you in waves. And I think they're really good at all three levels. And this is a team, by the way, that lost their leading tackler now as a linebacker, plays for Memphis. One of their most talented edge guys now is one of the leading, pass rushers at Miami in the country. And so it's not like they haven't lost really good players. I think they were so deep and so primed to break through. We're all kind of intrigued by Nico. He played and looked good in the bowl.
He hasn't even been like crazy yet, though. That's what's
he hasn't. He had. Yeah, Ryan, last week he played a good defense. Oklahoma, they're different now than they used to be. They're not good on offense, and they're good on defense. And he had 2 fumbles. And, one of them, it's hard to say was his fault because it was just, their left tackle wasn't playing. It was the backup came in and got
I thought he could have been a little
and
quicker on that play in particular. Like I was even talking with Stanford Steve about, because like I was even I'm sorry I interrupted, but like he's so calm. He's so smooth. I think we did this with Liner just 48 hours ago, so I'm not going to do it all over again. But yeah, to the point is like, I'm not going to sit here and spend any more time on this fumble. I shouldn't have interrupted you. It's just that with all the hype and the Heisman stuff, like I can't wait. Like that's actually going to happen a couple times in games this year, and they haven't even needed it, and they look this good.
Yeah, they also went into Baton Rouge to get a big time running back. I mean, LSU hasn't had like an elite running back in a minute, and Tennessee's got one, and he came from right in like Dutchtown there. So like they've had a lot of things. Obviously, Nico was the huge money recruit in the early stages of NIL, and we think he's just going to keep getting better and better. It's a good system offensively. Man, it's a good time to be a Tennessee fan. And I would circle back to your premise a minute ago. Why are we buying? Why are people more, kind of positioned to buy Ohio State and not give the benefit of the doubt to Ole Miss and maybe Tennessee? I just think it's like we've seen Ryan Day be in the playoff. Also, you can get away with not having your A game in the Big Ten. It's hard, it's not like Tennessee, like Georgia's the team that has the worst schedule of the superpowers right now in the SEC, but still and Ole Miss hasn't really played anybody, but this is definitely Lane's best team there. I mean,
both things are true.
The portal.
Right. Both things are true.
So we'll see, right? We'll see. I mean, the last time Lane had big expectations on one of his teams was when he was out here at USC. They were preseason number 1 and, things imploded. I think Lane's a different coach now than he was, whatever that was, 10 years ago. And I also think, I think he's probably got a deeper roster now than he had coming out of that team, coming out of the sanctions and whatever it looked like. Of the two of them, I have more confidence right now in Tennessee, but it's kind of cheating to say that because I feel like we've seen more from Tennessee so far. I do think Tennessee's defense looks better than Ole Miss's, but Jackson Dart's further along in his career than Nico. I think their receiving core might be better. I can't wait to watch what happens in the SEC this year.
I can't wait to watch you in studio this weekend. That's what I'm really excited about.
There you go. By the way, you can interrupt me anytime if we're going to get a Stanford Steve reference. He's everybody's like favorite mascot at this point.
All right, but mascot?
I don't know.
Coaches love that guy.
Everybody loves it. Everybody loves that guy.
Chip Kelly was our neighbor here, and then I'd be like, well,
he's come around on Stanford Steve.
He loves Stanford Steve. He likes him more than he likes me. He was like, one night I was like, what's going on? And then Steve was like, oh, I ended up going out with Chip. I'm like, down the street? And I was like, wow.
He doesn't even need Chip Stanford Steve doesn't even need Chip didn't even need him to be at 900 Club.
Well,
Stanford Steve was basically Norm after a couple of weeks. And it was like, oh yeah, he's coming in. And it was, he's just.
There's a reason, because he was on somebody's tab that you're looking at right now. And probably the greatest achievement of my career in Los Angeles has been getting Stanford Steve a satellite membership at 900 Club through Dave, which then meant really it was a status thing for Stanford Steve. But it was actually a financial thing for me. So now he's not on my tab anymore. Because I got the invoice that month when he and Chip were like doing work together or something. I don't even know what was going on. But I got the invoice that month and I went, what the fuck happened here? And I was like, oh, Steve was here.
Of all the people, you and I, neither one of us now works in Bristol or ESPN. Of all the people that I used to work with there, and there's plenty of people I still really like and still talk to, I think Stanford Steve might be my favorite current ESPNer. There's just like,
now that Zach Lowe's gone?
I didn't know Zach Lowe, but but Stanford Steve, like we went out drinking. Where did I see him? It was like he might have been at Michigan for Michigan, Texas. That's what it was. And we ended up meeting up at a bar. He's just, I don't know, he's the best.
You've known him for a while. If you're an NBA fan, Gordon Hayward has now moved into even potentially more challenging industry, and that is his production company. They've got a new movie that comes out today. That'll be in theaters tonight. Notice to Quit, and that is from his production company Whiskey Creek, who he's partnered with Simon Hacker on that one. So Gordon joins us now, man. What's going on?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Just excited to get this movie out there. It's been a long road making this movie, but can't believe that the day that everyone gets a chance to see it's finally here.
I have a lot of questions about that. I want some NBA stuff as well, but
Sure.
I'm obviously really interested in this part of the industry. And when you start to learn a little bit about it, you do kind of wonder how anything ever gets made. For you, what was the most educational part of this process?
Well, the whole thing's been educational. I didn't go to school for making movies or anything like that. Distribution, this whole thing has been a big learning process. I guess I didn't, I knew it was difficult to make movies. I didn't realize how long it takes to make movies. We started filming this thing in September of 21. And here we are, September 2024, and it's just now coming out. So there was a lot to do with, because it was, kind of a low budget film, and we did the whole thing ourselves. Filming lasted for about a year, but then you got post-production for a whole year. That's the part where it seems like it just takes forever. And then, the distribution, but it certainly has been a learning process. I'm still learning as we go here.
So what motivated you for I know when guys get done with their career, they have all sorts of different interests, but there had to have been something, whether it was a show or a movie when you were younger, where you started thinking about the process of this and if it was even viable for you after playing, right? Was there a moment that you can think of?
Yeah, well, I don't know if there was a moment when I was younger that I thought about ever making movies. I certainly really enjoyed movies growing up. Would always watch them with family, and we're going to family video and arguing for 30 minutes on which movie we want to watch and trying to pick it out. And then, of course, in the NBA, we have so much time, so you're watching movies on the road and on the plane and all that. But the moment, I guess, when I got hurt in Boston, that's when I met my partner, and he's Simon Hacker, who wrote and directed our movie. And he actually did the documentary of my comeback when I got hurt in Boston. So we spent a lot of time together then, and we really just were talking movies, and could tell he had a passion for it. And we decided we wanted to start a production company, which is Whiskey Creek. And then it was one of those things where it's like, all right, well, let's make a movie. And we kind of decided to shoot our shot on it, pun intended. And then it just went from there.
So when I watched it last night, I could tell it was personal. And before I jump to that, the industry, I read this book about it where basically it was almost like basketball in a way, where you had all these really brilliant Ivy Leaguers coming in with statistical models, and it doesn't just have to be Ivy League, but you get the point. Is you had different structures, and that was kind of carry over from baseball. And there's also the belief that movie studios are going, why are we buying up all of these scripts but only making this smaller percentage of them? I have writer friends years and years ago, I'd be like, how does it work? And they'd be like, well, I've got a couple really good credits, a couple of things worked, and so now I have a development deal, and so I'll sell maybe a script every now and then for pretty good money, knowing it's never going to be made. And then I'll be like, so after it's not made, then what happens? It'd be like, then I'll just sell another script. And so It seems again, based on stuff I've read, not so much from all the conversations I've had, because I think we even had the guy on to talk about this years ago, was that just studios started saying, let's spend more on less. So when I watched the movie, it just reminded me of the kind of movies that I loved when I was younger. These really straightforward kind of indie film, this is about family. It's about a challenging dynamic and all this kind of stuff. And so when you're putting this together, was there concern of like, we're doing something that seems like the industry's going away from?
I mean, it's always concern when you're making a movie of whether or not it's ever going to get picked up. I think it was something where after, Simon and I talked about it and he showed me the script and I read the script, I certainly connected with it because it relates to a lot of people. It's about family. It's about finding work-life balance, which as somebody in the NBA, I know all about. I mean, I'm gone all the time. And so I've got 4 kids and a wife and trying to figure out, that whole struggle. And I think it was the way that we did it is kind of groundbreaking because we distributed it ourselves. And as you mentioned, the industry is changing. It's always changing, but it certainly has changed even throughout the time that we started making the movie to where we are now. And it was just something where I think that's actually what I'm also proud about is how we've gone about doing it, and the fact that we're a small indie movie, but we're out in theaters, and people are, because of COVID, not going to theaters, but I think it might be making a little bit of a comeback here. I think people still like going and getting out to the theaters, and it's kind of an event. It's a date. It's something to go do. And so I hope people will go to the theaters and watch the movie. Like I said, it just connects with a lot of people. And certainly if you're a father or a daughter, or, you have a connection in that way, you're going to love the movie too.
It does feel really personal, which I was starting to say before I asked the indie part of it. Knowing Simon, spending that much time with him, clearly you guys hit it off. You started kind of game planning this a little bit, but did he describe, hey, this is how I want to do it? Did he already have the script? Did he give you an idea of like the inspiration behind it and the creative process of this?
Yeah, I mean, Simon, he's a creative genius now, and I could tell that right away. I mean, he's a different type of guy, super high energy, but one of those just obsessive. Like when he gets his mind fit to something, he's going to do it, and it's not going to stop it for anything. He's been in New York for a decade now, and he's been in the industry, kind of working and grinding, and so a lot of, and I know he's talked about this. We're actually supposed to go do a lot of Q&As today. And so I don't necessarily want to speak for him, but even doing some of his Q&As with him, he said that he sees a little bit of Andy in himself, just that persistence. Andy is our main character in this show. And, he sees his persistence and hard work, and also living in New York for that long. People that live in New York understand the apartment game, and something that I didn't know about, but being from Indiana, but the apartment game and being with these brokers. And he said he's changed apartments so many dozens of times over the last 10 to 12 years. And so he kind of went through that and saw, these brokers and their kind of game and how they work. And so all of that is certainly personal to him for sure.
When I first moved to Boston, I used a broker like this, and it brought back a lot of memories because it was just disaster after disaster. And they finally showed me one that was okay, but I also had no money, so I don't know that my window was all that great for opportunity for a lease. But the last one was the best. He goes, I saved this one I like to build to a better one. I was like, so we looked at 3 dumps to build up. That was all just part of the game. And now this one is one I might actually even want to live in. He's like, yep, that's the way we do it. And I was like, all right.
That's cool. That's wild that people, but that's what I didn't realize that's how it is. But that's how it is. People are just out there grinding and trying to make ends meet.
How tough was it for you to retire?
It was really tough. It's, as an athlete, I'm sure you've talked to so many of us, I don't know if there might be for some athletes, a perfect time to retire, but I think for a lot of us, there's not necessarily a perfect time, and certainly is bittersweet. And I feel like I still could have played for a couple years, depending on the situation and all that. But I think it was just time, and I'm completely at peace with how my career went and how everything unfolded, and my family was at peace with it as well. I think my kids wanted me to play more. They loved going to the games, not to watch the games, but to be around the atmosphere and certainly see the dancers and the cheerleaders and all that. So they're going to miss that, but I told them we can still go do that. But I think it hasn't been too different so far because it's still the off season. I know that everything's kind of getting going right now, and I think in November and December, I'll probably feel a little differently and certainly miss it. But it's kind of just been a normal off season, and certainly with the movie here, it's kind of helped bridge the gap for me to jump right into something else.
How many? I imagine people still wanted you to play, right? Like,
Yeah.
was there a moment that felt close? Like, okay, maybe I just do this and like do a 2-year deal or something.
Yeah, there was a bunch of offers and places I could have gone, and that's where you're sitting down, like trying to weigh it in your mind, like trying to figure out if it's going to work and if it's something that I wanted to go do. And I think ultimately it's like I wasn't like 100% into it, and I think if you're not going to be at 100% into whatever idea, it's hard to justify like doing it in my mind. Like when I going into each season, you're ready to go and you're ready to give it your all. And, I didn't feel that. So
I don't know if this is a question or not. I need to say it. I need to say it to you. So I worked at ESPN for a long time, as you know.
okay.
And when you came back after you were hurt, and look, I grew up in New England, so I kind of started as a Celtics fan, but like once I was in the business, it wasn't the same, right? Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
you win or you lose. I kind of felt the same way, which I kind of miss. I kind of miss it, but it's definitely part of the resume for me. And everybody was so excited for you to come back, and you started 18 games in 18-19, and that team was a weird team.
Yeah.
You can go wherever you want, but like the lead up to this is that I found it to be like incredibly unenjoyable. I just didn't like what the makeup of that team was. And there was a storyline. And the reason I bring up those 18 starts is because of this. Because I do work in the media, there are times where I'll get information and I'll think, is that worth sharing? And one of the talking points, I remember Stephen A. was on First Take talking about it. And he was like, when Brad Stevens let his guy, Gordon Hayward, like get his starting spot back, that like ruined the team. And I thought, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm at home watching it going,
yeah,
if you're Gordon Hayward with your resume and you're healthy, you get your starting spot back. That's just the way the league works. And it still was only 18 games. And here we were into March, and the team was generally disappointing. And it felt like other players were saying that, like, I go, that makes me think that players are saying to Stephen A. that, that's kind of when the locker room was lost. And on top of that, I thought, well, if you're saying that run of you starting games disrupted the season, that means this is the softest mental team ever. I don't know how much of that made its way back to you, but I remember being, and I don't even know you, so it wasn't like I was mad because we're friends. I was mad at the structure of that topic, knowing that you probably had teammates that were saying, because he had to have been getting it from someone to share it. So the floor is yours, because I don't have
that was a lot.
Question.
That was a lot.
It was way too much.
No, I mean that season was definitely the hardest season of my career, like easily. And I went and I talked on PG's podcast a little bit about it, but it was something where, like, obviously changed the course of the rest of my career being injured, but I think also really helped the young guys that were there. I mean, there is nothing better, in my opinion, than being able to play through mistakes, gain experiences, and me getting hurt certainly helped JT and JB develop faster. Now, they would have developed anyways. I don't know if anyone thought they were going to be as good as they were going to be back then, like when they were drafted. And it was just something that it just helped them do it faster. I mean, they went to the Eastern Conference Finals that year, and Kyrie got hurt too. So also, Terry Rozier is able to develop as a starter. And so going into that next season, there was just so many people on our team were, first off, the expectations were ridiculous because on paper, we were the best team in the league by far, like talent wise. But it was something that we all had our own individual agendas. The young guys are trying to prove that they're all-stars. I'm trying to prove that the season before I got injured, I was an all-star and felt like I was one of the better wings in the league. So I'm trying to prove I'm trying to get back there. Kyrie got hurt, so he's trying to prove it's his team. We also had Marcus Smart. Terry's trying to prove he's a starter. Marcus Smart trying to prove he's a starter, all defense. Marcus Morris, Al Horford. I mean, we probably had 7 or 8 guys that had career highs of 40 all on the same team, which is pretty unheard of. And, and then you have the talking points of like, I shouldn't be getting these opportunities. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, I'm not getting any opportunities compared to what I was getting in Utah. So how is everyone even complaining? Like, Gordon's getting the ball too much. And I'm like, it was like one of my lowest usage rate seasons of my career. So I'm sitting there like, I'm not even getting the ball to do anything. How is everyone complaining I'm getting the ball too much? And I'm trying to come back from a major injury too. So it was a chaotic season. It's disappointing how the whole thing went. I think it just shows like, you got to have a team that meshes together well. That it's not all about just the talent that you have and who's on the roster and all this stuff. Like, you got to have a team that blends well together. And for whatever reason, that year we couldn't make it work. I mean, I think we were just two similar positions. And like I said, guys are trying to prove themselves more than play, with each other. But certainly they've figured it out now. And I couldn't be happier that the Celtics won. I mean, I still, I have no ill will toward anybody, and have great relationships still with guys there. So, happy for Brad and Joe and JT and on Al and JB and the guys that I played with. It's great for the Celtics.
Yeah, that was after I saw the rant because it was late in the year. I had to go look at it again because he didn't even start that many games, and then it was 18. And you're right, it's the lowest usage rate of your career, other than your rookie year, and then the last year of Oklahoma City.
Well, that was why it was like the narrative and the storyline just didn't even make sense, and it was also, it was the whole thing was just, it was set to fail. I mean, it was just a lot. And I think Brad too didn't know what to do, as a coach, because, I basically joined the Celtics in large part because of Brad and because we had such a great history. And, I think he's an amazing coach. And, but then he's got all these, you try navigating all these different storylines as a coach. Like, what are you supposed to do? You're trying to figure out what's best for your team. And so it was tough, certainly tough, definitely the hardest season of my career.
Okay, so there's another thing from that, and I promise I'll jump around here because I don't want to just do Celtics, but
sure.
I always thought it was interesting, like hearing kind of the vibe on the team, and that like Kyrie, who, I talked about Derrick Rose in the open of the show today, and I go, there's just certain basketball players that other basketball players are so enamored with because they see some of the stuff that they do that is so special that it's like, whatever you think of Kyrie's career, there's this level of reverence for him, like a Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook, like just like, how do these guys do this against other NBA players?
Yeah.
And so I think it always feels like Kyrie has like more fans in the NBA than some of us, and I'll put myself in that group because of the up and down parts of his career, like as opposed to the media. But in the beginning, like he wasn't an older player, but it felt like maybe he was trying to like act like this old grizzled vet to like Jaylen Brown and Tatum. And it felt like Jaylen Brown like pushed back on it a little bit, but now it feels like Jaylen loves Kyrie and it's come full circle. What is that dynamic like, and maybe helping us better understand two personalities like that?
You mean like the dynamic between Kyrie and the younger guys, or what?
Because it felt like specific to Jaylen, and maybe I'm asking you too much to be like, what do you want me to do? Project where their heads were at 5 years ago, 6 years ago, where they're at now. But it felt like a full circle moment. And maybe it's just being young and then being in the league a little bit more. But I always thought it was kind of funny that Jaylen Brown's like, I don't need this. And then it's very clear that he's a massive Kyrie fan now. I don't know if there's a perfect answer in there, but I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to what I was just talking about with our own individual agendas. I mean, and first and foremost, I mean, let me say, I think the reason why a lot of NBA guys are enamored by Kyrie is just his talent is unreal. I mean, he is definitely the most talented player that I've played with. He does things on the court where you're just like, how the hell did he just do that? And a lot of times I didn't even ever, it's not like I saw him practicing like his finishes and all this stuff. Like he's got this natural ability, especially in big moments where he just pulls out things and you're just like, did he just like what you're like trying to figure out what he did. And I think that's what a lot of NBA guys respect is his skill. It's just his skill level. And he can do anything on the court that you want him to do. I think as far as your question goes, I mean, I think it goes back to like, Jaylen and Jason are, obviously at the top of the league right now, but back then they're trying to, they want to get there and they're trying to prove that they can get there. And, so I think Kyrie's kind of was at that level back then. And then, so he's trying to say like, look, like it's my team. And that's why there were just so many different narratives that were going on.
Was it just easier in Utah?
It was definitely, we didn't have that in Utah. We definitely did not have that when I was in Utah for sure. And it was completely different.
It'd be crazy to, and you said like, hey, moving forward or whatever, and maybe you're a better person than I am, but did you ever allow yourself to go, what if I just never left Utah?
I mean, I certainly have thought about it. Sure. I mean, it's definitely crossed my mind. It's just, you never, it's hard to play that game. You know what I mean? The what if game is so tough to play. I mean, it's like,
it's totally pointless, but I'd be shocked if you never did it. Right.
Absolutely. It's completely pointless. I mean, it crosses my mind a lot because like I said, that my whole career changed when I got injured. I mean, and I was relatively healthy, like really healthy throughout my first 7 years in the NBA. And then I have the major injury in Boston. And then it's like every year it's like some sort of freak injury. It just seems like every year something goes wrong. I break something, I grade 3 ankle sprain, like all this different stuff. And it's probably a lot stems from that main injury and your body compensating and all that. But it's hard not to think like, well, what would have happened to my career if I wouldn't have gotten injured? And I think I was just proud of, I was able to get back to, in my mind, I felt like I was able to get back to the player that I was. I mean, when I went to Charlotte, that was part of the reason I think I said when I left, like I felt like I wanted to still maximize who I was as a player. And in Boston, it wasn't going to be like that because we just had too much talent. But going back, I felt like I saw some of my best games as a Charlotte Hornet. So for me, like I felt like I kind of got back to where I was, and that was another, like I was at peace with where I ended up as a player and everything. But certainly you can play that what if game forever,
I might be fishing for a LaMelo answer here, but if you look over your career, who's your favorite young guy that you played with?
Favorite young guy?
Because now, if you don't say LaMelo, then maybe I cause you a problem. So I don't know. Maybe you can pass on this one if you want to, because you just finished up at Oklahoma City.
Favorite would be a loose term. I mean, I don't know if I have a favorite. I've been lucky to have great teammates everywhere I've been, which I think is not everyone can't say the same thing. I really enjoyed JT, Jason, when I was in Boston. We sat next to each other on the plane. And so we were able to have conversations about just life outside of basketball, just everyday things. And that was a lot of fun to get to know him because I was, I didn't really, he was, I think, 18 or 19 whenever I first joined. And, he's a young wing and obviously all this potential, so much potential, but at that point in time, I had 2 kids. I mean, I was way older and he's probably looking at me like I'm just this guy's so old, but just getting a chance to know him and sit next to him and just kind of shoot the shit, was a lot of fun. So
old, you're like 28.
Right. But, but I remember I came in at 20 and there were people that are 30 and you're looking at them like, damn, this dude is ancient. Like he's a dad. Like, you know what I mean? Because you're just a kid then. And so, and here I am at 34 acting like I'm old. I'm not old. Like,
no, this guy's talking about a 401k. What the hell's that? So, all right. I think the easy answer, the easy question would be like, okay, so you just spend a run with Oklahoma City, and this is also a really young team, and they've got like big time aspirations already. I mean, who knows? A couple of shots here or there against Dallas. Who knows? Maybe they're in the NBA Finals, right? How would you describe the Thunder? Not experience, because I know why it's different, but maybe the young guys with the Thunder as opposed to those early years with Boston. Is there a difference that you can think of that is worth talking about?
Yeah, I would say the difference is that when I would say probably the biggest difference is they have a clear cut number one guy, it's Shea. Whereas in Boston, I don't think that was established initially, so I think there was, and that's why they, like JT and JB had all this back and forth in the media and all this. I think one was trying to outshine the other. And now I think they're probably good with the whole thing. But in Oklahoma City, it's like Shea plays one position, Jalen Williams plays another, Chet plays another. Like it's it's way easier, I think, to develop like that, where you're almost not as much competing with each other. But certainly similarities with the two, and just the talent level that, OKC should have make another good run this year. I think they picked up some good pieces, and part of it's just staying healthy. You got to be healthy. But I mean, we were right there. Yeah, there was multiple shots that could have gone down where OKC is playing Minnesota in the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, I mean, PJ Washington doesn't turn into Steve Kerr.
That's right. I was joking with PJ. I'm like, where was that in Charlotte?
Or where was that in the NBA Finals, man?
Yeah.
Look, it was a lot of fun to see you at Butler and then just tear it up with Utah. And, I know the play of that night, is kind of like this defining equator of your career, man. But I'm really happy for you to be able to walk away now. And then, to get everything going with Whiskey Creek, again, Notice to Quit out tonight in theaters nationwide. And you're one of the NBA guys that started a production company that's actually making stuff.
Right.
I'll see announcements every now and then. I'll be like, that dude?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too.
Is he on a two-way?
Well, that's the other thing is a lot of sports guys make production companies, but then it's all like sports movies and you get like pigeonholed into sports movies. This movie has nothing to do with sports. It's a great, it's a feel good story, like you said, about family and the grit of New York City. So thanks for having me on, man. Everyone's got to check out the movie Notice to Quit. It'll be, around the country.
Yeah. Sounds good, man. Thanks so much for the time today.
Thank you. See ya.
The Alliance continues. Recap of last week.
Unfortunately, Ryan, you were the only one wrong. We had a 3-1 week, and USC did let you down there against Michigan. So, overall record's fine. But so far, you and Kyle are the ones to be the only ones wrong. But I think your record is still good.
When does it become a heater for me? How many in a row before it's a heater?
Well, you're on 3 straight. 3 is, I'm not getting, you're like
4
warm. Yeah, I don't know that you're on fire here.
No, I'm just wondering. I just wanted to keep tabs on it.
You're also, you're 3-1. Everybody else is 2-2. It's not like you're, I'm trying to dish
totally
you here,
in the
but
lead. That's all. All right, let's go.
1 week you could be back
just
to
in the lead.
Same record
clear everybody else.
Let's do it. Clear lead. Let's go.
Your tee box, Kyle.
Yeah, go ahead, Kyle. Confident Kyle.
Ceruti's praying on my downfall. Okay, so we just had our ACC preview banked on One Shiny Podcast. I'm all jazzed up for Wake Forest. They have not beaten the spread through 3 games, but they're home for Louisiana, and I'm taking them just money line minus 162.
Okay, ACC Kyle. Wargon.
I'm going to go with Bama, just because I wanted to pick Georgia, but we're going alt spread on this one to keep it at plus 400. So it opened
plus 4.5 is the spread that you're getting there.
No, I meant on the payout of the 4 legs. So it was plus 2.5 at the open. It's down to plus 1.5 for Bama. So we'll take it at plus 4.5.
All right. Wargon.
Yeah, I'm going UNLV plus 3.5. Lost their quarterback. Line didn't really move. So we're taking the alt spread, getting that up to plus 3.5, minus 2.
They love their backup, which I think is the most underreported part of this entire story. So good job. I like your research on that one.
Whoa, thank you.
There you go. What's up, Wargon? I'm going to go to Michigan. I'm going to go alt spread minus 6.5. I think they win by a touchdown versus Minnesota. Minnesota, I don't even know if they're going to be able to score that much. Michigan's defense is awesome. Michigan's offense scares me a little bit, but the defense is incredible. So, does Minnesota get in the double digits? I don't know, but I like Michigan to win by a touchdown. So those 3
emotional win.
I'm a little nervous about that, but they're at home. It's in Ann Arbor, so I think it'll be all right. So we got Michigan minus 6.5, UNLV plus 3.5, Wake Forest money line, and Bama plus 4.5. That gets us to plus 456, boys. Let's go.
Okay, there you go. You can check it out. FanDuelSportsbook.com.
Heater watch.
And before we move on from this portion of the program, I want to get you updated. We are 3 weeks in to Couch Money Research Couch Money. The standings are not great here. I was hoping to come in second place against the sharp number, fading the public. Let me start over again because I don't know. I want to call it sharp because I don't want to advertise myself as that. And then gambling guys. I know I've already said this fucking soliloquy here. All right, 3, 2, and 1. And the final portion of this part of the program, I want to update you on our season-long competition between Fading the Public Money, an informative pick, and what I'm seeing from the couch. So couch research money here went 2-1 last week, first winning week. Your boy took the L again. I've sucked at this so far. 0-3, overall record 3-6. So Fading the Public. Right now, the two highest percentage of public bet teams are the Saints plus 2.5 at the Falcons. Thanks to the Falcon. And the Vikings are at 84% plus 2.5, plus 3. You can find it. I think it's plus 3 now on FanDuel. So that is the number that we're going to use. Let me make sure as of this taping that is still accurate. Yes. All right. So we will go Green Bay -3. The fact that this line is at this number here with the Jordan Love questions for this week has to be that he's playing. The informed pick. Let's go Colts plus 1.5 at home against the Steelers. That line has moved. It opened as the Colts were a favorite. They are now a dog in this. Let me update this. Excuse me, plus 2.5 right now on FanDuel. God damn it. I got to start the whole fucking thing over again. I'm going way too long. It's always the last segment, isn't it? All right. Here we go. 3, 2, and 1. And before we let you go, the final portion of this part of the program, we will update you on couch research money. Last week, a winning week where the informed number came out a win. Minnesota plus 2.5. You won that one outright. Fading the Public. Rams plus 6.5. That one. And I went with my beloved Bears. That was just too emotional for me. I took the loss on that one. I have not picked a winner yet. So couch coming in last. We're hoping to come in second out of this one. So what are the plays? Fading the Public money. We will look at the largest amount of action, and that is, as of right now, a toss-up between the Saints at Atlanta. Thanks for the Falcon. Green Bay on FanDuel right now is -3 at home against the Vikings. The Vikings have 84% of the bets. So we are going to give out Fading the Public, Green Bay -3. That number has to be because Love is playing. I was trying to look it up the latest this morning. They must know. The informed number, the Colts opened as a favorite. They are now a dog at home against Pittsburgh. So the informed number is telling us the Colts plus 2.5. And then finally, the couch part. I don't like this pick, but I'm doing it. I normally wouldn't want to lay a touchdown here, but the Chiefs -7. If you look at the Chargers injury report, it is not great. Limited practice, not practicing whatsoever. You get the Herbert ankle issue. I would maybe rather grab the 7 here, but I wouldn't, not because I'm scared of the Chiefs. I'm scared that the Chiefs haven't really put it together yet. And that's my research from the couch hunch. So those are your picks.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Little life advice to close out the week. What is up to Kyle? What's up to Steve? Kyle, you look good today. Again, just had a good week.
Sound surprised. Wow. It was like
no,
back-to-back days. Kyle looks good. Wow.
Yeah, thanks.
You working out? Thinking of
I got a little
out?
weight bench over there.
I noticed.
Did you see it? Oh no,
I didn't see the bench. I saw you.
Oh yeah, just took the laundry basket off it this morning and got some 35s. I think I got to get some lower ones too because I think as you know, it's more important to do it correctly than do more weight. So I might be expanding the old weight rack over here.
Yeah, let me know. I got some rusted stuff. As soon as I move to a different place, I'm not complaining about where I live, but some of the gym equipment very quickly started to rust.
That ocean air.
I was like, what is going on here? Yeah, but it wasn't like I moved like 40 feet across the street. So
Kyle, what's the deal? You're just like benching in your office guest bedroom situation?
I wasn't
here?
done.
Oh, sorry. All right. I'm more interested.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty much the deal. I was like, why not? If it's here, the whole trip to the gym, walking and all that stuff, golds, and I like my membership's still on pause. I can unpause it without new fees, but I was just like, you know what? You do your little morning lap. It's like 3.5 miles. You come back, do a little of that. So just seemed more realistic for me to actually do it.
Nice.
Okay. I got a bench for you. If you don't like that one, let me know.
Don't love this one. I gotta be honest. It was an Amazon. Which one's the cheapest one that we'll see.
No, I got a nice one for you. I tried to sell it on Craigslist, and people were just like, "That wasn't fun. That wasn't a fun experience." And then I just started getting petty about it. I was
haggling
like,
over a bench.
Yeah, like $15 this way or that way, and I would just tell those people, "No, I'm like, this is the price. This is the listing. This thing is in great condition, and this is like I'm hooking you up at this price." It's like, no, can't possibly,
can't swing it.
Some guy was giving me some song and dance about like, I was like, dude, I want your life story for $15 off of the price. It's his third, and I just went, all right, I'm out on the whole thing. So we got an extra bench over here for you, Kyle, with your name on it, incline and everything.
Oh shit!
No rust on this. Okay, let's get to some emails here. Some dudes bummed out about girls. All right, love the show. Shout out to Kyle for always keeping it real and balancing Ceruti being a white knight. Ceruti is, dude.
What the hell?
We're gonna have to. I know. We may have to do like a Ceruti Pride episode. I don't know.
I'm good. Pride. There's actually a very funny story. My sister she's like an entrepreneur, and she's like looking for trademark stuff, and she like didn't really know the Ceruti story, and she like typed into Google seeing if it was trademarked.
Oh, God.
And she found all of the Russillo, whatever Reddit stuff of like, how people just think that that's my name. And she started doing deep dive, and she's like, wait, people don't like you. And I was like, yeah, there's a good contingent of people that think I'm kind of like this like pretentious loser idiot. So yeah, my family accidentally stumbled upon that, which is a bummer. Yeah.
My dad does that too. He's like, are you looking? I mean, people got some really nasty stuff to say. And I was just like, I really never thought I would get that from this angle, Dad, but I'm glad you know all that stuff. And then every once in a while he'll be like, what do you do again? It's like, so you know the bad stuff. You don't know exactly what's going on, but you are privy. I don't think he's got me on Google alerts, but
yeah, that's always a tough deal in the beginning for the family. It's I had to talk to a couple of people in my family, be like, you don't need to forward this stuff to me. And
he's like, no, man, they really got some stuff to say. I was like, yeah.
I was like, I don't know why you're going to read it, but it's like almost so tempting for someone that it's like people would spend time writing about my kid or whatever. And
see, my sisters
it's
went
just
the other
hard.
way.
It's just,
my sisters just started. They just started sending me screenshots of the funniest insults, and that was going through the family group chat. So that was a good couple hours. But I got 2 younger sisters. They're not afraid to let me have it a little bit, which is fine. It doesn't matter. I don't need any help. We're good. I'm happy.
I had a moment with my dad where I was like, you cannot wait in the parking lot for this person. Okay. He was like, I got nothing to lose. And I was like, I get it. I understand your switch, but
you can't go lower than the Reddit people.
You're going to make it worse at school, Dad. Don't talk to him, Dad.
Well, everyone at school's going to know.
I'm kidding. No.
It's a little bit later on in life. Let's see here. I just, of all the people to not like in the media, Ceruti is so low on that list. So there you go.
Thanks, man.
That's
all good.
That's
I think that was a compliment.
I think so. There's so many worse people.
Yeah, right. You're going to get mad about Chinese tariffs? God. All right. 5'11", 180, Southern Ontario, Canada. I work out just enough to hold my own on the basketball court, soccer field. NBA comp Pablo Prigioni. Names in the email have been changed. Thanks for doing that. All right. I've been with my girl now 5 years. She's 26. I've turned 30. I love her very much. We're real tight, get along great, see eye to eye in most things. This is the first real head scratching issue that's come up. So they've been together 5 years. That's good. we get a lot to work with here, a lot of data points. I don't know how to approach this. Let me dive in. A few of my close friends had weddings this summer, and two of those were in the wedding party. For and her best friend and older sister have just recently become engaged. Let me read that again. Few close friends had weddings this summer. Two of those, we were in the wedding party. There we go. The we thing makes a lot more sense now. So, and then on top of that, her older sister and her best friend, become engaged. Me and her have had this conversation and both know where we're at. We both want to get married in the near future, so I thought there wasn't much confusion on the matter. But here's the kicker. About a month after her sister got engaged, my girl, Sandy, name change, has put an engagement type ring on her finger. When I noticed and asked her about it, she just brushes it off to the side, and she says she likes the ring and just wants to have it on her finger. Crazy, I know. When I bring this up, this will cause some confusion and have friends and family think I've proposed and we're engaged. And she says that we, parentheses, definitely means me, can just clear that up. And since we plan on getting married anyway, it's not a big deal if people make the wrong assumption. Part of me doesn't care and wants to tell anybody that asks. She bought the ring herself and is just wearing that. But I know that's going to make it's going to make me look bad and not make her look like the psycho that she's being. This is completely out of line from her normal behavior. This also has me worried about potential issues in our future and how strong-arming me into action is a viable option for her. Ooh, this guy's really planning it out, thinking it out in his head. I like him. He's a planner. There's a big birthday party with my friends coming up in a month, and I'm getting a headache just thinking of how to handle all the excitement and questions from friends. What's your take on this? An extra note, I have an engagement ring and was formulating a romantic plan to propose, but now that's the furthest thing on my mind. Please help. Feel free
in your mind.
Well, I think like a lot of these conversations that we have of our relationships, it's okay. Well, is the rest of it really, really good? Okay, it is. It seems like you've been with her 5 years. You already told us you were going to marry her. You've talked to her about being married. But this does suck. I mean, it's a pretty selfish move because, as you pointed out, the cleanup on this is a pain in the ass. It doesn't really mean anything. So like that
also
part of
means
it's
everything.
good, but just
it also is like, what the hell? Like now
does it though?
This is insane behavior because now you have to explain why her level of crazy to other people. And when you tell people, oh no, she just likes to wear it on her ring, that you have 9 other fingers. Like it's insane. That's I don't know. It's not good.
Yeah. Have you tried the compromise? Like, can we just go right hand with it? Like, can we just go right ring finger? What do you think about that?
It's my grandma's or something. I don't know.
But
I remember there was a girl that I met that had an engagement ring on. And so I wasn't, and then she was being written. I was like, what's going on? She's like, I just wear it. I was like, you're not even dating anybody? Yeah. Yeah. But the thing is, I don't know. People that do that, like go through all of that. I mean, I guess congrats on being so desirable.
I know.
That you're going to wear an engagement ring that isn't attached to
get
anything.
Stuff done throughout the day.
My Uber carpool is just so much easier now. Look, I get what you're saying, sir. It's just a pain in the ass. And really, to the bigger point, what he's asking here is this some new red flag? But I think you would have known this. If this is, like he says, completely out of character for her, then this is not the 5th or 6th thing in this time together where you're just like, this is ridiculous. The other part that I think is like really selfish about it is that you already were putting together the plan for the ring. You were thinking about how you wanted to propose. And this moment that is such a big deal for so many people, especially like younger people, I think, when they're getting engaged, like they really want to pull out all the stops. They want to be able to have the girl tell a story to all of her friends and how incredibly thoughtful you were and you thought of everything. And, you picked this perfect spot. You asked for permission. A secret photographer was behind the sand dunes, the whole deal. So she completely doesn't care about any of that stuff, but I don't think it's a deal breaker. I just don't.
Yeah. If you've been together 5 years, and this is the first whiff of what the fuck was that? I don't know. I mean, it almost sounds like some bad life advice we would give one of our women listeners if they were like, he's been dicking me around for 5 years. I don't really know what's going on. And we were like, you could just get a ring. Like, it sounds like some bad, like, not thought out life advice, So, I mean, maybe we counter that with
fill in life advice. Like we're just off the show that week. I don't think we would even. I don't know. I don't think I would. But yeah, you haven't even done anything. She's just basically got engagement fever because she's been around it a ton. And look,
but she can't.
Marketing works.
A couple months. She can't wait a couple. I'm not saying you break up with her, or if this is the first thing, then okay, then like maybe the rest of your life will be good. But I do think it is smart to be like, wait, is this going to be like the doors open to other things in life where all of a sudden she's like, I don't know, buying like timeshares or something because you won't buy her a vacation house. Like this is just a weird. Like, you can't be patient enough that you've already talked about being engaged. I don't know. It doesn't sound like she knows you have the ring, so that's fine. But you at least know it's on the horizon. That she can't just wait even just a year for someone that she loves. That to me is it's wildly strange, and I don't know. It would
you think about breaking up?
It would bum me out as a dude to be like, because then again, that you're making my life harder. You're making me feel like I'm doing something wrong because we haven't done it. Like, we haven't done this thing in time or in your timeline, even though we've talked about it together. I just think it's rude and selfish.
Yeah, I think 5 years is a perfectly reasonable time to wait before you get married. But I mean, there's people that get married after like a year or two. So maybe she's like comes from that world and she's like, man, by year 3, I thought this would have been a done deal. I really don't know. But again, if this is the first like whiff of something weird you're getting, I mean, can you just be like, oh, it's an anomaly? I mean, I don't know.
Maybe back to the bad life advice suggestion. I mean, maybe her friends are sitting around being like, "This is ridiculous. You've been together 5 years.
You caught
he's
the bouquet
30.
Twice. God damn.
Yeah, maybe there's some family value part of this. Maybe there's a background where like it's actually absurd in this circle that you haven't proposed to her, and you're oblivious to the idea that they've been talking about it nonstop the whole time. It sounds like she just goes, I want one of those too, and then did it. And that part scares you because that means that if she's that impulsive, you're going to spend your 30s and 40s breaking down fucking boxes from Amazon every night the rest of your life. You'll be like, how many peanut butter pretzels do we possibly need? We have a subscription to these. So like there's some purchasing stuff there. I think you kind of, the emailer kind of hit on it a little bit. I think you just got to tell her, okay, cool, fine. We're going to this thing. You have an engagement ring on. I didn't propose to you. We're not engaged. I still want to marry you. That's on you. You're running PR on this one. Okay. So whenever anybody asks, I'm just going to go ask her. And then you're going to have to explain. Right. You're going to go, well, I went to a bunch of weddings and people close to me and like, it looks great. And I want to do it. And then she has to answer for her actions.
Yeah.
And if you explain that to her before this big event and go, just so you know, like, I don't love this. I understand why you did it. I'm going to marry you. Everything's going to be fine. You kind of took my part of the planning of this big moment in our lives. You kind of derailed that a bit, and you want to wear it, and that I told you, but you're explaining this. I'm not going to explain this for you. You're going to explain it to every single person. And to be honest with you, there's going to be people walking away and being like, that's weird.
Yeah, maybe that pressure is enough to have her switch hands with the ring or put it in her pocket or something. But yeah, I like that. Come up with like one succinct line that like basically just shifts the conversation towards her. Like find a way, like have it say the line the way it sounds good to you, and then just that's your like business card. Like boom.
Don't use the tone I used.
Yes, that's right. A little bit more tact. However you pull that off.
Anything else on that one? We're good. Ceruti?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a deal breaker for me, but yeah, it's definitely
again not a deal breaker. But like,
remarkable.
It's all well and fine
Not
for you to be
way.
like, oh yeah, just push it on her, ask her. But all your friends are gonna be like, dude, what the hell's up with what's her name? Like, what's going on here? Like, it's going to fall back on you because people are gonna be like, she's too crazy for me to bring this up right now, so it's gonna be you. So I don't know. It's all well and fine to say that, but that's not how it's gonna work out.
Okay. Enormous weight of responsibility causing guilt. 26 years old, 5'10", license says 6 feet because I was 5'10" when I got my permit, and I thought I had more growth left. I love that. That is incredible. After the
don't sell yourself short, huh?
The squat shrinkage of COVID, I had to like double check some. I was like, wait, can we look up a physical there and see what I checked in at? And so I just leave it on the license, even though I'm I'm cheating a little bit.
I got my license renewed a couple years ago, and I'm 5'10". I'm comfortably 5'10". It's fine. I'm actually probably like a little above 5'10". What's up? Not a big deal.
No, way over 5'10".
But my license is 5'9" for whatever reason. But I was so ashamed to I went up to the counter. I'm like, do I really ask this guy to change to give me an extra inch on my height at age 35? Is that a thing I should do?
Did you do it?
No, I chickened out, and it says 5'9". I know.
So
I'm not
having 10 years at 5'9", huh?
I don't know. Yeah.
You're locked in, buddy.
Maybe at 45, I'll have a different.
Isn't it? Wait, isn't it 5 years on a license?
No, I think it's 8. Maybe it's 8 years or something. It's not a full 10, but it's longer than 5. But yeah, I got too intimidated. I'm like, is that just like a loser move to be like, hey, could you just add an inch to my height?
Let's look that up. Yeah, driver's license. Is it state by state?
Yeah, California was 5.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I rocked the Connecticut stuff for a while. People were like, you still have a West Hartford license? Like, wasn't your dream always to move to Manhattan Beach? I was like, my dream was also to not go to the DMV earlier than I needed to. I had to take the driver's test and everything again when I was out here.
Some people, I don't know if maybe it's just transplant cities, but Los Angeles, like my buddy Blade, he's been out here, I think, like probably closing in on, almost 2 decades. He still's got a Maine license. He's like, yeah, car insurance is cheaper there. I'm like, what do you do when you get, whatever?
Sounds like, might have to edit that out just for Blade.
You think that's his real name?
It's true.
No.
Fair. It's 8 years, by the way.
Find Blade.
8 years.
It's 8 years in Connecticut?
Yeah. So,
okay.
43
so
8-ish. No, I don't know.
When did you get it done?
A couple years ago. So I guess early 40s for me.
Sounds like somebody's turning 5'10" soon.
Yep. Like you dunked at age 45 for the first time. I hit 5'10" age 41. Let's go.
Turning 5'10" soon.
Okay. And
what's this guy talking about?
Yeah, I don't know. We lost the email already. So yeah, I don't know. I started looking up licenses here. So now I've lost the email, and we'll just leave this in there. Punishment for myself.
Immense responsibility, he said. So
okay, yeah. The drama builds. It's just such a great opening line. All right, so 225, lost about 35 pounds over the last year or so. Okay, I was in thick season. Gym stats are average, nothing to boast about. I run 6 times a week, ranging from 2 miles to 7 miles, depending on if I ate too much. So this guy's driven. Basketball comp is Robert Sacre in terms of bench energy, nothing on the floor, because again, 5'10". Some guys at 5'10" can compete and pick up games, I think, right? Come on. I recently have hit a crossroads in my professional career, and it's eating at my self-worth and self-esteem. I recently decided to move jobs after 4 years due to a lack of growth and company going under slowly with no hope for promotion. I switched to something that I was sold was going to provide me that growth without much regression. As you can tell from me writing this, that didn't go the way I was told. Long story short, my mid-level job turned into an entry-level job, and my hybrid job turned into door-to-door sales, which was nothing close to what I signed up for.
So a nightmare.
Yeah. To make matters worse, I have a wedding in a few weeks. My fiance were excited to take the step forward in my career. I had full support, and the structure of everything was so far from what was promised. I had to leave and pivot to other jobs. It's been a few weeks. Oh man, so this is new. I still have no job prospects, really. I feel like I made a huge mistake, and the guilt of this compounded that I let my partner down. I also feel as if I made a choice that is going to have me regress in my career path. I'm now looking at restraint jobs. I don't know that I haven't held while praying that someone will let me back to the level.
Restaurant jobs, maybe?
I don't know. I mean, there potentially could just be a term that I'm not familiar with. I don't know. Will get me back to the level or close to what I once held. What do you think? What do y'all think as you've spoken about low points in professional careers? Did I mess up big time by aspiring for more? Should I just think this small bump in the road? Headlines, completely small bump in the road. You're 26 years old. Okay. I think there's some positives in here. One is that you care enough about your fiance that you are feeling that guilt. But I would stop feeling this guilt because, again, I cannot emphasize this enough. This is a massive bump in the road. Okay. But you just haven't been through enough shit yet. Sometimes when I think about like this, I've thought, I don't know, this book is in my head, but this like make-believe moment of zen of happiness that maybe we believe is potentially achievable, right? That you just get to a certain point certain level of success. Certainly wealth is part of that, health and family and all those other things. But like you keep potentially thinking that you're building towards all of these great things in your life. And then as you just kind of get older and older, you're like, yeah, I don't know that it really is all that much easier. And maybe all the success I have doesn't lead to the same level of happiness that I thought I was going to have. But really what it is it's not just this oasis of happiness. It's just that you've been through so many things now. You've experienced so much shit that it's tougher to derail you. And that it's not happiness, it's your ability to get over things a lot quicker just because you've been through more stuff, right? Think about like if you're 40 right now listening to this, the first breakup versus your third one, right? You're probably just like, all right, unless you're just an emotional wreck watching Gossip Girl DVD still by yourself. But so I think we've hammered that point home because this is probably like the first time something like this has happened to you. It feels brutal. So, like I said, the fact that you aren't like, there's another version of a guy here who's like, whatever, I don't even really care. Like, it doesn't matter. But you actually left because you aspire to bigger things. And then the job you were lied to, I believe here, look, that stuff happens, man. Like, I remember I was hanging out with someone who was looking for work. And they made the mistake of like following up on like some solar panel thing. And there was just all of a sudden now their phone number was just in the mix of all of these recruiters just constantly calling all of the time. And I'd be like, just keep them on the phone. I want to hear like what the pitch is,
What's the pitch?
Right? Like, I'm curious like what the pitch actually is. And the pitch was just everything. I was like, there's no way any of this is true. Like, none of this is true. Maybe for like the 1% of the people that actually like Ryan to do that. I was like, if you do this, like you're going to be a few weeks in going, this isn't what I thought.
Right.
Yeah. And so maybe that happened to you, which is just really, really nasty shit, man. Again, my first job with that minor league baseball team, the stuff I was told versus how it actually all played out. And good, it was the opportunity that started my career. So there's that part of it. But I remember being there for a few months and I'd left Vermont when I finally was done with school because I just thought you were supposed to do that. I went home because I didn't have anywhere else to go. And I thought of like, oh, I'm going to be a writer. Or I'm going to do all these crazy fucking things. And I'm like, how am I going to do any of this from Martha's Vineyard in the winter? And I was like, if anything, it feels like there's just another babysitter around. So that lasted a quick 3 months. And I went back to Vermont. And it was funny because people that didn't even know me were like, oh, look at you. You tried to make it and you had to come back. And I remember that like getting in my head a little bit at 23 years old because I was just right back. And some guys were like, you haven't been going out very much. And I was like, well, because I didn't live here. And they're like, you moved back here. And there was this weird, people that didn't know me, there was kind of this little vibe of like, oh, he tried to go to the big city. Like none of that happened. I was at home at my parents' house and I was like, you know what? I don't want to live on Martha's Vineyard in the winter at 23. I've already did this. I already did this in high school. Like, I don't want to do this again. Why did I leave? But it was after college. So I felt like I had to leave. And then I realized like, well, if I'm a loser here, I'd rather just be a loser back in Vermont because that was a hell of a lot more fun. And when I went to New Jersey 3 years after that, 2.5, whatever, I was like, I made another mistake. I'm like, this job is not, I'm like, what are you nuts? Like, none of this is going to work. This is so stupid. And I wanted to go back to Vermont for a few different reasons. But at that point, I was like, you're going to go back again? You're going to go back like a third time in 4 years? And then what are you going to do? Like all this work that you've been putting in to even get to this point. So look, I know that took a while, but the point of the exercise is that I just cannot emphasize enough how little this will actually mean. You know what? And if she's marrying you, she probably has your back and she's going to be saying, all right, yeah, this sucks, but it's going to be irrelevant. It's going to be irrelevant on the timeline of you two being together.
Yeah, I don't haven't been in the situation. My wife has been in this situation. It really, really sucks when you get sold a bill of goods. And I mean, I'm not going to offer any advice, but it really burns my ass, so to speak. Like, I think, like if you bought a service and it wasn't delivered, as how it was like sold to you, like how it's explained to you, like there's recourse there. And I just think it's so crazy that like you can switch jobs, maybe even move, completely change sectors off of being told all this stuff. And then it's not even remotely what it's like. And there's just no recourse. It's weird that like that applies to everything else except for like a huge life change like this. So yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. I mean, if you're 26 and you don't like your job, you don't like the direction you were lied to, and you're in a good, stable relationship, like, I don't know, I feel like you're kind of winning there because you got out of the job situation. Don't look, it's like, we talked about this with like when you're dating someone and then you're single for a while and you're like, oh man, did I actually have it that bad with my ex? And it's like, you only remember the things that like were positive for you or that were good for you. Doesn't seem like there was anything positive for that job. Move on, do something different. Might be a few lean years, but like if you're motivated and it sounds like you're self-aware enough to like actually give a crap about what your girl thinks and what your career prospects are, sounds like you got a good head on your shoulders. Like long term, I think you'll be all right. People in their mid 20s, like figuring out or pivoting their career directions, that happens all the time. And honestly, that's a good age to do it, because if you're doing that before your 30s, there's plenty of people who've done that after their 30s, and they're in a way more difficult predicament than you're in.
It's great that you care about this. It sucks what you're going through, but it's great that you care about being a provider. You care about trying to be somebody that's not, there's plenty of marriages, as anybody listening to this knows, it's like once they get married and all of a sudden it's like, maybe I'll just start mailing it in a little bit here. And you seem to have the opposite approach. And I know what it feels like when you're down and it's not happening and you're not waking up, going to the thing that you thought you were going to be going to. You're just like, okay, when's this going to be over? But the point is it's going to be over. It will be over. And then you'll be in the next phase. And the timing of it isn't great. But I just telling you, it sucks right now, but do not worry about this. That'll do it for Life Advice. Thanks to Wargon, Kyle, Ceruti. Our YouTube page is up. New post yesterday. Mail it in Thursdays. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, Ryen Russillo Podcast, or on your Spotify.